At Cumberbatch in Nepal, Caecilius and his followers secretly break into the library and quickly take down the librarian guarding the place. He snatches 2 pages of a spell book that belonged to the Ancient One. A female sorcerer discovers what is happening and immediately gives chase, forcing the group to flee. Soon after, they become trapped inside the mirror dimension, but during the fight, Caecilius takes advantage of an opening to create a portal and escape in time. In New York City, Stephen Strange is a famous neurosurgeon known for his extraordinary talent but also his extremely arrogant personality. Even while performing surgery, he listens to music and grooves along to the beat. Right after finishing one operation, he moves on to another patient who has a foreign object lodged in their brain. With his incredibly skilled hands, Stephen easily removes it, leaving the patient's family tearfully embracing him with gratitude. Not only is he a genius doctor, but he is also incredibly wealthy, obsessed with collecting expensive watches, and drives his Lamborghini Huracan down the road like a professional racer. But because he is overly confident in himself, he talks on the phone while driving, leading to a sudden accident. His car flies off the road and plunges into a deep ravine. Although he survives, his precious hands are severely damaged. When Stephen wakes up, he sees his girlfriend caring for him by his bedside. Looking at his fingers locked inside metal braces along with his medical records, he falls into complete despair. She helps shave his beard while he remains almost completely helpless. Sometime later, after the bandages come off, the hands that were once perfect are no longer as flexible as before. Stephen spends nearly all his wealth on treatment, but all he gets in return is endless disappointment. He asks a doctor whether anyone in his condition has ever recovered. He cannot even hold a pen or shave himself anymore. His frustration causes him to lash out at everything around him, including the girlfriend who has always stayed by his side. Soon after, he receives the file of a former patient who had once been partially paralyzed, but has now recovered and can even play basketball again. The man tells Stephen that he is in the exact same situation he once faced, then points him toward the only place where hope still exists, Cumberbatch in Nepal. Even though the cost is unbelievably high, Stephen has nothing left to lose, so he decides to set out in search of his final chance. Along the way, Stephen encounters a group of men trying to steal his watch. They attack him, but a man in a black robe suddenly appears and saves him. This man knows Stephen is searching for Cumberbatch and guides him there. It is also the place where the Ancient One resides. A woman gently poured tea to welcome him, the exact person he was looking for, and she knew everything about Stephen. He wondered why she possessed healing abilities that science could not yet explain. She said she did not heal people, they healed themselves. She also showed him a book written by humans, implying those who know one thing but are ignorant of 10 others. When Stephen showed contempt for this place, she quickly used a palm strike to push his soul out of his mortal body. He suspected that the tea contained a sedative that caused him to hallucinate. Next, she opened his mind to show him different dimensions, letting him fly out of Earth and into other worlds in the universe, places that science was not yet capable of detecting. When his soul returned, he knelt and begged the master to teach him. However, he was initially kicked out of this place. A student named Mordo advised the Ancient One to accept Stephen, as his talent could deal with Caecilius. Finally, the door opened, and Stephen was accepted to stay. Mordo gave him the Wi-Fi password so he could use Google Translate. The Ancient One taught him the art of summoning a combat shield. Although he feared his hands could not do it, the Ancient One asserted that he would succeed with just years of study and practice. He went to the library to borrow books. There, Stephen meets Wong, the famously cold librarian who never seems to smile. Stephen is extremely intelligent, so reading books and absorbing knowledge comes naturally to him. Wong gradually begins giving him more advanced books to study. During this time, Stephen discovers several forbidden texts and notices the very book from which Caecilius tore pages years ago. The librarian recounts the old story while warning Stephen that if he plans to steal those books, he will not leave this place safely. At another hidden sanctum, Caecilius finally learns how to use the forbidden spells from those stolen pages. He draws ancient symbols and chants alongside his followers, successfully absorbing power from the darkness. Back at Cumberbatch, Stephen trains diligently but still cannot properly use the sling ring. The other students can already open dimensional portals while he continues to struggle. The Ancient One quickly realizes Stephen's problem. He does not truly believe in himself because his hands have been permanently damaged. She shows him that even a one-handed man can wield advanced magic, then tells him that he cannot force a river to change its course but can learn to move along with its current instead. After that, she transports Stephen to another dimension known as the summit of Mount Everest. If he cannot endure for 13 minutes, his body will completely freeze to death. After saying this, she leaves because this is the only way to awaken his potential. In the end, Stephen manages to open a portal back just before it is too late. That moment seems to reignite his spirit, and his confidence gradually returns. Later, Stephen shaves his beard, changes into new clothes, and heads to the library looking for books about astral projection, a form of advanced magic. Naturally, Wong refuses. But that same night, Stephen uses a portal to secretly steal the book right in front of Wong. He even separates his spirit from his body while sleeping so he can continue reading. Soon after, the Ancient One summons him for questioning. Because Stephen's abilities are progressing far too quickly, she decides to move him to a safer place for training. Using magic, she opens the mirror dimension, a place where everything that happens inside has no effect on the real world. She then shows Stephen just how dangerous this dimension truly is, and says that if she revealed the entire truth, he would probably become so terrified that he would run away. The next morning, Stephen begins training in hand-to-hand combat and learning how to summon mystical relics. However, the only thing he manages to call forth is a tiny whip-like strand before quickly getting defeated. That night, Stephen returns to the library once again, eating an apple while studying the forbidden spellbook. He discovers a relic that looks exactly like the illustration inside the book, the Eye of Agamotto. When Stephen rotates his hand, the apple in front of him begins changing through time. He then experiments on the book itself, and the two missing pages suddenly reappear. But at that very moment, he is caught. The two sorcerers immediately warn him that abusing the stone's power could create chaotic timelines and trap him inside an endless loop. Even so, they also realize Stephen was born to master the mystic arts and finally reveal the true duty of sorcerers, protecting Earth from unseen threats. Their order built 3 sanctums, one in London, one in New York City, and the last in Hong Kong. Together, these sanctums form a shield protecting the entire world. The sorcerers are the guardians who defend them. Wong also tells Stephen about Dormammu, the dark ruler who longs to consume Earth into his dark dimension. The pages Caecilius stole are actually part of a ritual meant to summon Dormammu and draw power from him. However, Stephen insists that he came here to heal his hands, not to join a war to save the world. Before he can finish speaking, the London sanctum suddenly comes under attack as Caecilius launches an assault. A violent shockwave erupts, and by the time Stephen regains consciousness and steps outside, only ruins remain before his eyes. Venturing deeper inside, he discovers 3 doors leading to completely different spaces and quickly figures out how they work. The place contains countless mystical relics, including the legendary Cloak of Levitation. Stephen sees Caecilius and his followers entering while taking down anyone in their path, so he immediately steps in to stop them. The chase begins shortly afterward. As a newcomer, Stephen has almost no chance against Caecilius in direct combat. His magic works inconsistently, making the situation even more dangerous. However, Stephen thinks quickly and uses dimensional portals to trap 2 of Caecilius's followers inside them. Even so, he still cannot defeat Caecilius alone. Stephen is continuously overwhelmed and nearly runs out of options when the Cloak of Levitation suddenly flies in to save him and chooses him as its new master. But the situation still does not improve much. The cloak then points Stephen toward a mystical weapon hanging on the wall, allowing him to bind Caecilius before beginning to question him about his true motives. Caecilius launches into a passionate speech about eternal life and a perfect world of darkness. He believes sacrificing a few people is only a small price for humanity to evolve to a higher level. Stephen continues to trust his master completely. But Caecilius reveals that the Ancient One is no different from him. She also used the power of the Dark Ruler to gain immense power and prolonged life. Stephen refuses to believe it. At that moment, he realizes his sling ring has disappeared. One of Caecilius's disciples suddenly ambushes Stephen, but the cloak immediately wraps around the attacker to protect its master. With the little strength he has left, Stephen opens a portal directly to the hospital and reunites with his former girlfriend, asking her to help treat his wound. Just as the surgery is about to begin, Stephen's spirit suddenly separates from his body, terrifying her completely. After calming herself down, she follows instructions from his astral form and continues the operation. At the same time, the disciple's spirit also appears in the hospital, and the two launch into a fierce battle. Ordinary people cannot see them, but the sounds of their clashes echo throughout the building. Thanks to his former girlfriend's efforts, Stephen's heart finally starts beating again. He tells her to use the defibrillator one more time, and his opponent's spirit is instantly destroyed. After waking up, Stephen even jokes that he just returned from Tibet after becoming a monk and chanting Buddhist prayers. She stares in shock as he leads her to the portal, But Stephen quickly leaves, making her realize that the world holds far more terrifying mysteries than she ever imagined. Even right before heading back into battle, the cloak carefully wipes his face for him. Having barely escaped death, Stephen is immediately assigned by the Ancient One to become the protector of the New York Sanctum. But he insists that he does not want to kill anyone because he is a doctor whose purpose is to save lives. At the same time, Stephen questions the Ancient One about using dark rituals to maintain immortality. She only coldly warns him to be careful with his words. Right then, Caecilius returns. Knowing they cannot fight him head-on, Stephen quickly steals Caecilius's sling ring and escapes alongside Mordo. Without the ring, the two cannot open portals and even stumble repeatedly while trying to flee. Behind them, Caecilius hunts them like a predator chasing prey. Empowered by the Dark Ruler, he can freely manipulate the mirror dimension. During the chaos, Stephen and Mordo become separated. Caecilius orders his followers to focus entirely on chasing Stephen. He slides through countless shifting dimensions before confronting Caecilius once again. Fortunately, Stephen narrowly avoids his deadly strike in time. At the critical moment, the Ancient One appears and immediately restructures the entire mirror dimension. The sight is absolutely breathtaking. She explains to the traitor that the Dark Ruler is merely using him and that the other world is nothing more than a true hell. The two sides quickly clash. In terms of raw power, the Ancient One is nearly unmatched, but Caecilius proves more cunning. He suddenly attacks from behind, gravely wounding her before kicking her through a portal back into New York City. Stephen rushes her to the hospital, but in the end, he still cannot save her. Afterward, he projects his spirit to meet her one final time. The Ancient One tells him that she spent her entire life watching over and protecting the world from countless dangers. She also admits that she cannot see one absolute future, only the possibilities that may happen. She tells Stephen that he is not driven by power, he is simply terrified of failure. That fear made him exceptional, but not yet great. She then gives him a choice between saving his hands or standing up to protect the world. The Ancient One confesses that she never wanted to use dark energy, but sometimes someone must break the rules for a greater purpose. Stephen admits he is not ready. But in truth, no one can ever be perfectly prepared for everything. She takes his hand and tells him that death is what makes life meaningful because everything is temporary. Then she slowly fades away, entering eternity. After that tragedy, Stephen begins appreciating the woman he loves more deeply. He embraces his former girlfriend, even though he does not want to leave her behind. She tells him that even if he is no longer a doctor, he can still save people in another way. After one final kiss, Stephen immediately departs for Hong Kong. There, he gathers the surviving sorcerers to prepare for battle. At that moment, Wong alone is defending the Hong Kong sanctum, but it is obvious he cannot stop Caecilius by himself. Just then, Stephen and Mordo arrive. Nearly all of Hong Kong has already been destroyed. Stephen uses the Eye of Agamotto to reverse time. Everything begins rewinding as though none of it had ever happened. Taking advantage of the opportunity, the two quickly disable Caecilius's followers and imprison him within a wall. Even Wong is brought back from the brink of death, but immediately afterward, Caecilius still manages to break free. He freezes time around them to prepare to end everything. Stephen realizes that the only way to stop this is to confront the one truly behind it all, so he flies directly to face Dormammu. Although his power cannot compare to his opponents, Stephen possesses the Time Stone. So every time he is defeated, he instantly returns to continue negotiating. Dormammu even starts believing he is hallucinating because everything keeps repeating endlessly. It turns out Stephen has trapped him inside an infinite time loop. No matter how furiously Dormammu kills him again and again, everything always resets to the beginning. Eventually, the Dark Ruler has no choice but to beg for release. Stephen immediately sets his condition. Dormammu and all his followers must never return to Earth again. After returning to Earth, Stephen sarcastically remarks that Caecilius should have stolen the entire book because he missed the instruction pages. At that exact moment, Wong finally laughs for the first time. All the pressure seems to fade away now that the world has been saved. Stephen continues maintaining the natural balance before returning the sacred stone. Wong says that news of the Sorcerer Supreme will soon spread across the universe and that they must always be ready to fight in order to protect Earth. Looking at the watch given to him by the woman he loves, Stephen quietly reflects on the future ahead, and that is the ending of the movie Doctor Strange.